Let's do it.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Austin, Texas. Rising from the dead on the summer solstice. Unshackling the chains of the spirit, as it were. How is everybody out there? Let's just all take a collective deep breath and go, yeah, settle in. Got a lot to talk about today. We're going to touch on a few different subjects. Mostly what is happening or not happening in the truth movement. And we're going to try to track a number of different things and put them together and do our best to piece this mosaic of people and events and channels together in such a way that we might have some better understanding as to what's really going on. Because I spent almost 3/4 of the day yesterday down some rabbit holes on YouTube, which is, everybody, oh God, I mean, when I first started this trip back in 2009, there were some things happening on YouTube. And some of the work that was being done on YouTube at that time was really, really good. Really good. And, really, about as close to scholarly as you can get, people really putting together interesting pieces around symbolism in movies and archetypes, and sort of building the base and the foundation as to what was going to come over the next few years. There's some pretty inspiring stuff happening on YouTube, and the people that were doing it back in 2009, 2010, were very talented because the technology was a bit bulkier, a bit clumsier then. Although, to be honest and fair, the technology hasn't changed all that much in roughly 6 to 7 years, but there was a learning curve that was taking place with the technology. It's got a little bit easier. So people can put up their videos and have them look halfway decent. And there wasn't this proliferation of people doing their best and trying to, well, not even the times doing their best, but just getting out there and clicking on their webcam and talking into their screen. And I would not necessarily consider myself a YouTuber. I do the Sunday night live stream, but there are people that do YouTube videos every day. I do these podcasts which wind up on YouTube. And but I'm not kind of in that same discussion. And there is a discussion about various YouTubers. And there is a community of truth YouTubers, and right now it is completely breaking down. And this is what I discovered yesterday. And it started off with a channel called Truth Unveiled, I believe. And there's a fairly popular guy who runs this channel. He does a show every day at 1:11. His name is Nathan, or Nathaniel. And he's an interesting character. I don't know a lot about him, but apparently he's told people that he's on meds, and he's got a history of mental illness. And every time you see him do his videos, you can see the cat condo in the background with his Siamese cat lounging around the cat condo. This is the reality of YouTube and a lot of it. Now, there's some really good work. Like, I really like the stuff that the Truth Stream people are doing. And they're here in near Austin. I think they're out near Bastrop or Hutto or Taylor. And it's Aaron, who was, the guy's name is Aaron, and it's his girlfriend. And he used to work for Alex Jones at InfoWars and did a lot of Alex's video stuff. He's a really good videographer, and I've watched them grow as a channel over the course of the last year, and I'm amazed at how quickly they can bang out these videos every single day at a pretty high quality clip and rate, and then the level of information is really good. So I think they're a bit of a breed apart. But anyway, I was watching this Nathaniel character yesterday, and this is where George Webb has been like an atom bomb inside the quote-unquote truth movement. He's been incredibly polarizing for a number of different reasons. One of the more polarizing reasons, I believe, is because he became so popular so quickly. Like, where did he come from? How did this happen? There is popularity envy on YouTube. People are very protective and territorial about their likes, their comments, their views. They all want to be, super popular. And so I think that there's some popularity envy when it comes to web. That's part of it. But I think that there's also this sense now, and this gets into where we are astrologically, which I'll talk a little bit about, as we have Saturn retrograde. And we've been trying over the course of really the last 2 years to try to get to some immutable truth with Saturn and Sagittarius. People have been mining Pizzagate. People have been mining the Clinton Foundation. People have been mining the Soros relationship to things like Black Lives Matter and some of the other disruptive movements, Antifa. And this is where we've been really for the last 2.5 years. And now that we've got Saturn retrograde happening, I think, at least from my perspective and vantage point, that retrograde is all about reflection. And instead of digging in and moving forward, maybe it's time for us to review, for those of us who've been doing this for any significant amount of time, to review what's going on and how it's affecting people. Because I can tell you right now that the type of infighting and name-calling that I've been witnessing in this community, whatever this community is incredibly toxic. It's incredibly toxic. There are sides, there are divisions. Clearly, there's another level of divide and conquer. We've seen divide and conquer outside of the quote-unquote truth movement. We've seen that. It's like people on the left, people on the right, people on the black, people on the white. Well, now it's seeped down a couple of levels. Now, I'm not sure if the left has their own version of this. I haven't gone that far. I'm not sure. I think the left is united in their already apparent dysfunctionality. But this is new. This is a new level. And really, what would be probably more helpful and more useful is if these people could figure out that they're being played, or they could find another way to resolve conflict. Because conflict resolution is not a strong suit inside of this community. There's a right and there's a wrong. There's a real, there's a fake. There's the truth and there's the shill. There's the truth and there's the troll. And to be honest with you, there is a lot of that out there. And if you step back and think about, well, if you want to control information, and trust me, controlling information is a really big deal. Because if you can control information, you control people. Bottom line. And now we're at a point where even if the information wasn't fully controlled, you'd probably still be in control of people, because most people have checked out, or I came up with this analogy last night when I was at my favorite place, Jack Allen's. And the analogy was that we become these sort of miniaturized Balkan states. Our consciousness has become Balkanized. And that we're all sort of these versions of Montenegro, or Serbia, right after the wall fell. And it's very hard to approach us. It's very hard to create any kind of wall, bridge instead of a wall. And this is what's happened. Everybody's just kind of hunkering down in their own Balkanized, micro-Balkanized consciousness, furtively guarding their point of view, furtively guarding their belief system, furtively guarding their bias. It's hard, and it's hard to break down sometimes, but it's kind of essential because this divide and conquer piece, this divide and conquer strategy, is really at the core of everything now. And when we get in there, what do we get into? We get into duality. So now we've got people basically. Who needs a war? Right? We've got enough people at war with each other, either directly or indirectly. So who needs a real war? It's happening right now. But it was fascinating watching what was going on. And again, if you want to control information, then why not create people in that environment who will be the controllers or the influencers of how to control information, or at the very least create and broadcast chaos and noise. I was watching this one guy yesterday, H.A. Goodman. It was hard to watch him. Sorry. But he was going on and on and on about George Webb. And he was saying that what George Webb is doing, what he's doing is dangerous, and he's putting lies out there. And so he was kind of this truther guy, but he was really kind of coming from, say, the New York Times perspective or the Washington Post perspective. And I thought, what's really going on with this character? And why does he want to demonetize YouTube? Because George Webb is using it as a kind of a ongoing campaign to crowdsource his investigation. I don't know, but it was interesting. Because he was basically saying, hey, look, this guy's jeopardizing everything. Let's just defund YouTube and make it an even playing field. And there are people that make money off of their YouTube videos. I don't, by the way. And it probably has to do with the fact that I only get about 300 listens to my show, but that's okay. It's all right. I'm fine with it. So this is taking place now, and it's kind of disturbing, to be honest with you. So I do think that there has been a concerted effort to lead people astray. I think there's been a concerted effort to pit people against one another. I think if you go into the comments section, you'll find people that are paid to disrupt the comments and to come in and to cause chaos and create some level of confusion. This is not by happenstance. It's not by happenstance. I believe that there is a constant concerted effort to make this take place. And it's fascinating to see the people who have popped up, like just in the last year. Like Robert David Steele popped up out of nowhere. George Webb popped up out of nowhere. And the Webb stuff is fascinating because you've got this other guy named Dave Acton who looks pretty much like George Webb. And then so it's like, okay, well, is George Webb Dave Acton, or is he Dave Swigert, or So there's all these different layers and levels of who's who and what's what, and it's become a maze of mirrors, to be quite honest with you. And what happens is that, and I talked about this yesterday, is that we get attached. We get really, really attached to the personality. And for whatever reason, they strike chords, and it's just like advertising. You see something in an advertisement, and the people who create advertisements know this, and they prey upon the subconscious cues and triggers that we all have. So, I relate to that. I identify with that. I don't identify with that. It's a fascinating and evolving process. But people are waking up to it. And that's the other thing now, because we're in this game. We're in this game of adaptability. And if you get too stuck or stay stuck in an area for too long, and you're not nimble and you can't essentially move out of that perspective or point of view, then there's a very good chance you're going to get your feet caught in mud. Because the game is changing all the time, and the cheese is being moved all the time. And this is what we're involved in now. I believe we're involved in a high-level cat and mouse game for information and truth, and to understand what's happening behind the veil. So in order to do that, you've got to stay really, really nimble. And people are waking up. People are again, there's this kind of breaking wave of watching these videos. And there are people who are doing videos that are understanding the dynamic at play. What's behind it? Who's behind it? And ultimately, what it really comes down to, and a few people are starting to figure this out. And I tip my hat. I tip my hat to them, give them credit. What's going on here is we're creating these distorted fields of emotion all the time. All the time. And if we're in there and we're watching a YouTube video, we're getting pissed off, or we're doing this, and bang, 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 we're living in an environment where energetic exchange is happening all the time. And even just from a basic fundamental process like being on a computer and getting into the computer and tapping into the Wi-Fi, which taps into the 4G network, soon to be 5G network. That train is rolling. Do you think it's just a one-way experience, that it's just all coming in to us, into our direction, so that we can use it, avail ourselves of the energy, the resources? I'm going to go on record and say it's a two-way operation, in that what we are actually sending out emotionally is going back in the other direction, and is actually, I believe, being absorbed. I think this is what's happening, and that there is a consciousness that is growing and evolving and getting stronger, that is preying upon our chaos, our fear, our anxiety, our anger, our resentment, our frustration. Every day we pour those aspects of ourselves into this field. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be, in the box, the small box, the cell phone, or the iPad, or the computer. Excuse me. Although I do believe that those instruments are nodes of amplification. And they are not just one way coming into us for us to avail ourselves of the resources. I believe that they broadcast back out and create another dissonant field. And out of that dissonant field, there are energies that feed off of it. And those energies are getting stronger and stronger all the time. It sounds maybe a bit crazy, a tad paranoid. I don't think so. This has been my experience for many years, to be honest with you. And now we're at a point where it's becoming sort of double down all the time. So this is what's behind it all. Now, for us to get ahead of the curve now, and we can't stay static. Like, for instance, and I'm going to be really upfront and confessional. When Trump was running for president, I was excited. And the reason I was excited wasn't necessarily for Trump. I was excited for the process. Yeah, there were things you had to hold your nose and look the other way, because it was not pretty to watch. It was not pretty to listen to at times. But what I loved was the complete obliteration of the old guard. I loved the fact that Jeb Bush looked like a fool. I love the fact that these posers, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, were exposed for who they were. I loved all that stuff. And I loved the fact that Hillary finally had some light cast on her dark past and the dark past of the Clintons. Ultimately, it wasn't enough. But that stuff was great. That stuff was great. And it was great theater to watch these two kind of go back and forth like a WWE wrestling match. And of course, it was almost entirely scripted, although some sides got the better of the script than the others, apparently. Donna Brazil, thank you. Hillary, thanks you. But I was excited for the process. Because, and this is where I got into it with people on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Facebook. They would tell me, hey, don't you know Trump is just another clown? He's another part of the, patsy. He's just, at that point, I didn't care. I didn't care. I said, because I was saying, look, this is about momentum. This is about energy. We're breaking down the social construct that has been choking us off for the last 50 years, which was the mind lock of political correctness and the inability for people to speak their truth without some form of repercussion, either personally or collectively. Our tongues were being untied, and this was through Saturn and Sagittarius, and I thought, this is great. And I was all for it, and I'm still all for it. But again, we have to be able to adapt. Like, I had no illusions about Trump telling people who really did 9/11. I didn't think that was going to happen at all. And I certainly knew that Trump was going to be all in on the security state. He told us that, right? And everything else, I didn't know what was going to go down, because I've seen him dance around a few things. Like, for instance, he said that he was going to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Hasn't happened. Hasn't happened. That's Trump. Now, of course, Secret Agent 666 is in Israel right now to broker some kind of a peace deal. We'll see about that. I mean, he could. I mean, it could all just be window dressing to make him look good, right? We know how these things go. But you have to be nimble. You have to be nimble. It's like, okay, that was great. The energy was great. Now what's going on? Okay, I reserve the right to say this is wrong. I don't believe that you're headed in the right direction here. I don't believe that we should be shooting down Syrian planes. I don't believe that we should be dancing with the Saudis. I don't believe that we should be involved in a war with Yemen. And this is where we have to be agile. Where we get bogged down is where we say, excuse me, well, I put my faith and trust, full faith and credit in this individual, so I'm just going to keep doubling down because my original investment, which was everything that I had in terms of my personality and my spirit, my emotions, I threw it all in there. And damn it, I am not going to let that go to rot. I'm just going to keep doubling down. And then ultimately, you don't care. It's just like, that's my man, that's my man. And then everybody else who goes after your man is a hater, is divisive. And here's where we have this process of becoming these micronized Balkan states of consciousness. So we have to remain nimble. And the whole idea now, right, is we've got to get beyond this duality. And when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on, which was really, look, I understand. There are people who've been screwed over in this country and in this world, and that's part of the public record. It's just it's a hard truth to deal with, but it's real, and it's kind of universal at times. Do some people have it better than others? Sure, no doubt. And it's usually class oriented. People with money have things better than people that don't have money. One can make an argument that because of that, the don't haves are kept down all the time. That's another debate for another time. But the thing that was heartbreaking about what happened during the height of Black Lives Matter, BLM, was this really hard separation between communities and people, and at a consciousness level. And at that point, even as it was breaking, I said, look, we got to get beyond this. This is a strategy, and people are being played and they're being used. And if we really want to be able to achieve some level of higher consciousness and psychic, spiritual, emotional sovereignty, then really we've got to get past our bias and have a higher vantage point. And that's where we are now. You know, the name calling and the divisiveness that's taking place inside of this movement has got to end. And we've got to find higher ground. Because when we do, we cut off the supply line. We cut off the fuel line to these forces that feed upon our stress, our animosity, and our darker emotions. There we go. We're going to keep this like at a brisk 25 minutes today. But before I shove off here, I just want to thank everybody who has donated to the 15 Minutes of Flame and Friday Farcast Fund. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. It allows me to keep going here, and it creates a real nice little sense of we're in this together. Okay, so for all of you who've donated so far, thanks a lot. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll see you back here 24 hours from today.
Okay, let's do it.